we're going to take a little dive into another piece of the 4 agreements today, just a small little bit I want to touch on. I'm also going to talk about how to take control of your mind. I talk about it all the time. Mind control is not controlling the minds of other people. It's learning to control your own mind. And then you take control of your own destiny. So today I'm going to give you some tips on how to take back that control of your mind. I'm also going to talk about how you can live a life that you love. If you're not living that life right now, you got to change it. Life is not supposed to be a struggle. It's not meant to just be one long, prolonged, grief session, problems, all of these things. Life is amazing and you need to love it. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. So we're going to cover all of that and so much more. So let's jump right into it. And we're going to go back to the 4 agreements. And we're just going to touch on this today. We covered the original book in the videos last week. Now we're kind of just diving in on specific parts that I think, need to be brought up again, really need to be reinforced. So we're going to talk about that. There's a movie called The Crucible. And it portrays how the evil serpent enters people's minds through knowledge. And in that movie, a real man of knowledge came to town with several big books. He'd spent all of his life learning about witchcraft and was full of that knowledge. The church knew that there were witches among them, and they determined to clean up the town. They judged the whole town based on those books, and many people were killed. One little girl had the power to condemn whomever she wanted to condemn by lying. If she said, "I see the devil in that person," they went to trial, were judged, were found guilty, and they were killed. The whole town was possessed by fear. But where was the evil? Was it in those people who were killed? No, the evil was in those books of knowledge. It was in that man who was determined to apply the law in the name of that knowledge. Each one of us has the same kind of book in our head. We have our own book of knowledge, our own book of law. And when we use that book to judge ourselves, to find ourselves guilty, and to punish ourselves, it happens over and over and over. We keep paying for the same indiscretions. Many times we even deny ourselves the right to be alive. Again, it is so important to understand that our mind is infested with a lot of little parasites or concepts that other people put in our mind. Together, those parasites create one big parasite, and they stay in our mind by agreement. Everything in our life is by agreement. It's only when we accept the agreement that it becomes a belief inside us. The belief that you're not good enough is one of those parasites in your mind. It's evil because it's destroying you. It causes suffering because it limits your life. It limits your creativity. It limits your happiness. Self-esteem is such a huge issue. And for people like me who spend their entire career on stage wanting people to look at them, obviously there's an early self-esteem issue, being a pudgy little kid in my case. But that parasite, that concept, those ideas, they're just thoughts. They create feelings. The feelings create emotions and beliefs. And then you're trapped. You are trapped. And it is destroying you. The belief that nobody likes you, the belief that you're not worthy of love, the belief that you're always right. These beliefs are not true, and they lead you into self-destruction. By always being right, you have to make someone else wrong. This was a lesson I learned, and it just blew me away. The idea that we don't have to be right. We don't have to make someone else wrong in order for us to be right. By making someone else wrong, you create an enemy. And then you're hurting yourself, because sooner or later, that enemy will do what all enemies do, and they will go to war against you. All these concepts are alive and they all work together, but they need your mind. They need your dream. They need your emotions to be alive. They only live because you believe them. These parasites are what the old religions called gods or demons. They have many names, but they are truly alive and they are in control of the human mind. Every concept, every belief in your mind has its own personality that wants to express itself. You have millions of voices in your head, a whole society inside your mind. And just like a democracy, what the majority wants is the way you live your life. That inner society is governed by rules that dictate the way your life should be, the way each part of you has to behave. The whole dream of your life is based on the rules in your book of law. And whatever happens in your life will be interpreted according to that book. There are two other parts that live in your mind. One is the judge. The other is the victim. The judge is doing its job perfectly. The job is to judge, and it uses your book of law to judge everything. Every action and reaction lives under the tyranny of the judge. The part of you that receives the judgment, or sometimes the reward, is the victim. Whether the victim receives a reward or a punishment will depend on whether or not you follow your book of law. The judge and the victim have no doubt that the book of law is the supreme truth and nothing but the truth. They rule the dream in the book of law without any doubt, which means they rule with faith. This is how you live your life. But the big question is this: is there any justice in that system? Now, when we were talking about the four agreements, we were reading the book, we've already found there's no justice in that system. All the suffering of humanity is in that book of law, that self-created book of law, that book of knowledge, because it isn't based on truth. More than 90% of that knowledge is not true. But for the judge and the victim, it's absolutely true. Tomorrow, we're going to get into the idea of mastering awareness by using your book of law. So we're going to get into that tomorrow. You're definitely going to want to be here for that. The four agreements, the companion books, the fifth agreement, actually anything by Don Miguel Ruiz is incredible. They're quick reads. They're powerful. It's one of those things where you read it and it's information you know that you know. Your soul knows it. You just had to be reminded. This is powerful. There are some authors, Eckhart Tolle, Michael Singer, that write the same way. And you just know that it's something that you had forgotten. So the four agreements available on Amazon. Grab yourself a copy. It's an amazing, amazing read. So we're going to talk about how to live a life that you love, because really, what else is there? That's what it's all about. The lens through which we see. We got to start paying attention. We have to start being aware. I used to wonder if children who wore glasses saw better or only different worlds. Whatever reality may be, it will be shaped by the lens through which we see it. When we're born, we're handed multiple lenses. We get genetic inheritance, gender, culture, and all the variables of our family environment, all of which constitutes our sense of reality. Now, looking back later, we see that we've perhaps lived less from our true nature than from the vision of reality ordained by the lenses that we use. The good news is that our actions are not correlated to some reality ordained by those lenses, but rather to how the world occurs to us. With the unsettling of old realities stepping to one side and another, we become interested in what might be, what we can imagine. Reality is a phenomenon that arises in language. Language is both the ultimate reality and the medium through which the reality is brought forth. Now, there is no reality per se, no fixed reality. There's only how we see it, how we say it is. It's interpretation all the way down. It's language. What we say, with and about others, ourselves, and the world at large that constitutes who we are. Getting that at the most fundamental level alters the very nature of what's possible, not merely in the way we think about ourselves, but in the actual experience and expression of who we are. Language is inseparable from who we are and what gives us access to our true nature, to the full scope of being human. It's the word that allows yes and the word that makes no possible. It's the word that puts the free in freedom and takes obligation out of the mix. It's the word upon which adventure, exhilaration, and authenticity depend. It's the word that the cocoon whispers to the caterpillar. We tell ourselves sometimes that living a transformed life isn't that important, that it's enough just to get by. We get wrapped up in our own concerns, our own points of view or positions, and the idea of getting ourselves to a place where things can be great seems like such a huge undertaking. It takes courage to live in a transformed way, to wrestle with our resistance, to give up mediocrity, to live consistent with what we know is possible. It's always and only a matter of our choosing. In virtually every human society, he hit me first or he started it provides an acceptable rationale for what comes next. It's thought that a punch thrown second is legally and morally different than a punch thrown first. The problem with the principle of even-numberedness is that people count differently. People think of their own actions as the consequences of what came before. They think of other people's actions as the causes of what came later, and that their reasons and pains are more palpable, more obvious, more real than the others. These are positions and ideas we all wind up playing out. When we are right, embedded in that truth is an equal truth that somebody else is wrong. It's not a matter of accuracy. It's a matter of being. We can't be happy, be vital. We can't be loving while we're being right, making someone wrong, justifying our positions because one displaces the other. The rightness of our positions pretty much precludes us from hearing and seeing any other point of view. We all have a choice about what's at play. When we elect to transform ways we wound up being, we move to a place of freedom, to a place of possibility. Our points of view and positions can then move from fixed to malleable, from closed to open, where each person has an honored place in the dialogue. Now, let's talk about relationships and being satisfied. When relationships are driven by complaint or by keeping track of who did what, or the need to be right, or the need to control, the wonderful world of human possibilities ceases to reverberate through them. Possibilities between people requires a space in which to create. And then when that space isn't there, most likely it's because we're holding on to something incomplete from the past. Completing things comes down to a matter of getting beyond all the yeah, buts and how abouts and but ifs, past our old assumptions and about the way things have always been. When we experience things as being complete, it's a state change from being a character in a story to being the space in which the stories occur, to being the author. And because relationships exist in language, instead, for example, a set of feelings or an accumulation of experiences, there's malleability, a plasticity, a can be moved aroundness, right? When we shift the locus of our dissatisfaction and complaints from something that exists out there to something that's located in here, what we're saying, and remember, saying is language, what's possible shifts. Being satisfied is not a feeling, later labeled with the word satisfaction. Rather, it's a commitment. It's a stand we're taking for that possibility. It's a transformation, a contextual shift from being organized around getting satisfied to an experience of being satisfied that alters the very nature of what's possible. Look, old time frames, they define us. When we stop letting old time frames define who we are, everything changes. Roman chariots and carts were built to be the width of 2 horses. Roads throughout the Roman Empire were built exactly the same width. Coaches, trains, and cars all followed, guess what? The same width. Now I want you to fast forward to space travel. The solid fuel rocket engines, in order to be transported, had to be designed the same width. A major design feature of our most advanced transportation system was set more than 2,000 years ago by the width of 2 horses. Knowledge that's handed down and inherited like this is, in one sense, everybody else's. Yet we often, for better or worse, end up living within its parameters. Our contexts, the way we hold things, sets the values, the limitations, and the directions of our daily lives. They impose on the external world our version of reality. It can take a long time to shift our context, not because it takes a long time to bring about change, but because we go about it at the level of content. In dealing with the content, we're extending the existing world rather than creating a new possibility in that world. When we function at the level of context instead of content, old frames stop defining who we are. It's not that we escape them. It's rather we escape thinking automatically, reflexively. Nothing is more exciting than to see the world in a whole new way, because we don't see one new thing. We see everything in a new way. The stone and the tiger have no choice of life. The stone must gravitate and tiger must pounce. Only human beings are faced with the mind-boggling responsibility of having to choose at each and every moment of their lives what to do and what to be. It's both a necessity and an invitation. Transformation is about coming to grips with what it means to be human. It prompts us toward risk, a risk inseparable from living, a risk that carries with it a wisdom and a knowing that the choice is ours. It's from there that the full range available to us in being human can be explored and can be lived. Sadness and anger is something we find so difficult to deal with. We find it difficult to deal with fear. Everything at the base is fear. Fear keeps us from doing what we're capable of, from experiencing and expressing the full range of what we can do. It's not so much a function of the fear being operative, but rather of the automatic way we pull in our past experience. Old circumstances have the power, not us. Completing a past fear includes recognizing that we would survive if the past repeated itself. There's a big difference between being realistic about what happened and thinking things will go that way again. We have the freedom to choose our relationship to whatever it was back then. And that's the beginning of building power. It takes enormous courage to try out new ways of being in the space where fear used to be. Possibility is an element of temporality, of time. We are localized in the present, but our overlay, our relationship to the present, is never just the present itself. It's either the past in the present or the present in the future. Of the two, the pull invariably is for the past present. We can see its pull everywhere, especially when we have a good or bad experience. We locate the memories of those experiences and the decisions we made about them out in front of us. In other words, in our future. Our future then becomes shaped and filtered through those decisions, limiting what's even seen or imagined as possible. Starting from possibility reverses the flow. It becomes a future present pull, which changes the game entirely. Even at its earliest stages, possibility leaves us with power and freedom. Altering the temporality of things is not just a matter of time. It's a matter of the quality of our lives. Now look, I say this all the time. Happiness is an inside job. Some of us think that happiness is dependent on things outside of us. We'll be happy when, or happy because, or happy if. Others think of happiness as a rare and fleeting thing, or a dubious from the start that it's even possible thing. It's kind of like there's an underlying position or commitment of I'm not happy. If that's true about you, it's a pretty useful thing to know. Being happy can't have something in mind because it's not something in the foreground. It's a background stand that creates the possibility of what's in the foreground. I am happy is a matter of saying, a sacred saying, a saying that has no ground beneath it, but becomes the ground. No rationale, no evidence. Being happy exists as a possibility. It's an inside job. If we can say, I am happy, and it's true because we said so, that's power, instantaneous and timeless. And that's the ultimate act of creativity. But being authentic is really a matter of courage. When we compromise, even the tiniest of matters, it's easy for those compromises to become more and more common. Over time, bit by bit, this erodes our sense of self. While one drop of red paint in a can of white may turn the paint only the palest shade of pink, perhaps barely noticeable, no matter what we say about it, the paint is no longer what it was. Similarly, when the wholeness and completeness of who we are is jeopardized in some way, albeit imperceptible at first, our sense of ourselves gets obscured, making it harder to return to who we are. When that begins, there's really no starting point to become ourselves. It's all just flailing around. The possibility of being fully ourselves occurs in proportion to our being authentic. Living with a pretense or being afraid that some aspect of ourselves might be found out precludes any real freedom. There's no template to follow. There's nothing to read. There's no path to success. It's a matter of courage. It gets made up as we go. And it's this shift, this fundamental shift that makes available to us all of this incredible power. Have you ever heard the saying, when we don't pay heed to the dance with uncertainty, when we limit the ambiguity, the floundering about, the experimentation, we deprive ourselves of the raw stuff of being fully alive? Werner Erhard, fantastic quote. This is one kind of uncertainty that has to do with the predictable, the inevitable, the figure-outable, having evidence. There's another that's brought forth not of circumstance and not of mind, not of prediction, but from taking a stand. This kind of certainty is based on questions rather than answers, on openness rather than resoluteness. There's no dogma, no rules. There's no need for justification or explanation. This second kind of certainty exists in the realm of risk, having something at stake. It's that realm of risk and that kind of uncertainty where possibility comes alive and flourishes. Let me say this. Whatever possibility is, it's born from a continuous I don't know. This is why I value that little phrase so highly. It's small, but it flies on mighty wings. It expands our lives to include the spaces within us, as well as those spaces outside us. In stepping outside of what we know, it's possible to bring forth an entirely new possibility for living. Not because it's better, because simply because it's what human beings can do. At one time, fail was simply a verb that denoted being unsuccessful or falling short of expectations. Since then, phrases like uber fail, massive fail, or most popular of all, epic fail have made occasional forays into nounhood. We take the notion of failure for granted. We don't even think about it. When we make up our mind to do something in a particular way and we don't succeed, we think of it like it's a failure in ourselves, a failure in being, versus it failed. We failed, it failed. You see the difference? If we identify ourselves with achievement and accomplishment and success, it can be difficult to tolerate anything that's inconsistent with that, leaving us no power and no powerful way to be. When we don't separate out what we were, when we don't separate what we are, what we're out to accomplish, from everything else, from just attitudes and feelings, that disparity is often interpreted as failure of being. It adds even more mass to the experience and reduces your ability just to be. Uber fail, epic fail. If we can effectively be with that, it didn't work, there's nothing but power there. Instead of having to imply a failure in being, what's there to be addressed is the possibility of inventing being. The being part of being human is where the infinite possibility of living actually lies, where we're able to connect the dots we never even knew were there, go in directions we couldn't previously have considered, stand where we're able to see clearly for ourselves. Now look, the difference between 99% and 100%, that difference is everything. If in the making of a computer chip or a bicycle wheel, some small part was left out, neither would be able to function as intended. Any disruption in the integrity of something's design, however small, impacts its workability, impacts its function. When something is whole and complete, it's not good per se, it just works. The same holds true in being human. When the wholeness and completeness of who we are is jeopardized in any way, however small, that begins to alter our life. Even at first, if it's imperceptible, if you can't even tell, we might experience a sense of discomfort, spend time defending, explaining, or pointing fingers, find ourselves tolerating a level of unworkability that we might not normally put up with. And because this happens in small increments, we don't fully get the kind of impact it has on things not working in our lives. A baseline that was once 100% now is at 99 or 98 or 70. But it's that difference between 99 and 100 that's everything. It's in that 1% that the quality of our life gets altered. Our sense of ourselves becomes more and more obscured, making it harder and harder over time to return to who we are. In being true to ourselves and being authentic, we tip the scales. Integrity and living a life of power and effectiveness are inseparable. So it often feels like our past experience is calling the shots. Here's how it works. When things don't go well, we put that past experience into our future as something we're afraid might happen again and something we want to make sure doesn't. Or if things go well, we store that past experience in the future too. So essentially, we take our experiences, which are behind us, and put our decisions about them, how we feel and what we think about them, in front of us. In doing so, we lock ourselves into relating to the past as if it were going to happen again in the future. That is your wiring. Trying to resist or avoid the enormous influence of the past keeps us foolishly focused on it. Yet we're reluctant to leave it behind. We're reluctant to transform the hold it has on our present day lives. Not doing so, though, results in a now that's shaped by and littered with the stuff of the past. In recognizing that the wiring is calling the shots instead of us, we're left with nothing. Nothing like a clearing, one in which we can be fully ourselves. Have you ever heard that term, clearing? When you're working through things, you're clearing. Not doing that, not working on that, results in a now that's shaped and littered and completely obscured by shit from the past. In recognizing that the wiring is calling the shots, it's not us, it's the wiring, it's the programming. Once awareness comes and we realize that, we're left with nothing. We start clearing. We realize it's all bullshit. If we're going to create a future in our relationships, in our work, in our lives, it's a matter of saying so. It doesn't rest on anything. It rests on nothing. And that's the foundation for possibility. In creating possibility, we get to know what's possible, and we get the power. We are in charge. We are the architects of our own destiny. A fundamental principle of what we teach, it's, people, the community, organizations, we all have the possibility, not just for success, not just for monetary rewards, but for fulfillment and peace and greatness and love. It's the possibility of a new life. That is what we're committed to. And that's how you live a life that you love. We talked the other day about meditation. I meditate every single morning. Doesn't matter where I'm going. I'm flying somewhere. I'm whatever I'm doing. I'll get up early to meditate. It's transformed my life. I do it twice a day as part of all my other routines, affirmations, visualizations. I couldn't make it without meditation. If you've never tried, if it's something you're looking to get into, or if you're doing it but not sure if you're doing it right, you should grab a copy of my newest book. It's Unleash the Power of Mindfulness Meditation. In that book, you're going to learn everything that you need to know to take control of the inner you, the soul, the overseer. And doing that allows you to see reality the way it is, not through the lens of your past, not through fears of the future, but real, honest reality. Unleash the Power of Mindfulness Meditation. You can find a copy now at the shop at brentwebb.com. Also, our YouTube channel is growing. We at first didn't spend a lot of time on it, but now we have over 300 videos. We need your help. We need you to subscribe. We need you to share the content. We need to get this word out. And the same thing goes for our YouTube community or our Facebook community. It's not just a community. It's not just a group. It's a family. Everyone that is here in our community is committed to empowering themselves and empowering others. When we do that, we take control of our lives. We give others the ability and the permission that some need to take control of theirs. We learn how to let go of the crap that is weighing us down. We learn how to set new goals. If your goals are years and years and years old and you look at them now just as daydreams, reset those goals and start making the right choices. Stop bringing negativity into your life and getting buried in it. We would love to have you. It's absolutely free. There's nothing there but love, support, knowledge, tips, tricks, mind hacks, everything you need to take control of your life. This is not a money-making group. We spend hours and hours a day for you, cultivating and creating content, doing these videos and trying to get the word out. This is how we change the world. If you want to help us, if you want to get this word out with us, all you got to do is like, share, comment on our content and keep this message going. That's how you can support us. All right? Facebook.com/groups/students of self-empowerment. So that's all I got for you today. Go out and enjoy yourself. And remember, every day is beautiful. You're alive and you're well. You're above ground for one more day. Go out and enjoy yourself. And remember, don't worry. Be happy and feel good. I'll see you tomorrow.